is a series of 12 talks, and we are right in the middle today. This is the sixth meeting, and I'm covering the age range 35 to 42 today. Um, I always try to make a little bit of a recap. I think it will be necessary today just to see where we are, how we got to that stage, and what was previously discussed, as I think they build up to each other and we can make a transition. I hope that what we are discussing today will make sense related to last week's discussion on Venus. But in general, I started from the beginning, from the time of everybody's life when we all begin our journey. And astrologically, there is a correspondence, I think, between each one of those 7-year periods and one planet in astrology, a planet more like a function, not so much as a planet influencing us as a transit, but the planet as a thing in us that is acting, that is responsible for one part of our life, for one part of what we do. And this particular function, I think, has its accent. It's time for development. It's best time for focusing on that in order for us to develop it in a good way. And then use it as a foundation for the next stage of life when another planet comes into play. And even though they are all acting at the same time, nothing really stops and kind of focuses only on one function. But I think we can, if we think about it and if we notice, we can see that there really is one of them mostly determining each one of those 7-year sections. And this is really the cycle of the planet Uranus, the main cycle of Uranus going around the sun for about 84 years. That's how I come up to those divisions of 12 by 7 or 7 by 12. So we have 12 times when we are running through a 7-year period. We can split it inside even more, but let's just stay with the 7 years every time. And something very specific, very particular is happening. And we can learn how to navigate that particular section of life if we maybe meditate a bit on the function of that planet and on the aspect that Uranus is making to itself during that period. So right in the beginning, we started from 0 to 7. That was the lunar moment, the lunar time of life. And so much more you can learn from that talk if you wish to go back to it, study it, and just see what I had to say there. But basically, every small child really needs support, really needs somebody out there to help develop the lunar function in a healthy way. And then we transitioned from 7 to 14th to the other side. They are like a pair. So you can also think of these as pairs taking 14 years each. So the moon was paired with Saturn. From 7 to 14th, we really needed to develop Saturn. Later on, I moved on to the second pair. So those other 14 years that follow, the first part, which is from 14 to 21, is when we talked about Mercury, another personal planet that really gets accentuated. And we do so many mercurial things when we are teenagers. And it's so much about links and learning information firsthand and much more. But yeah, I'm just making a very quick recap now. Then we paired Mercury with Uranus. Uranus was the planet that characterized our 20s, most of the 20s. And this was like a very rebellious, very transitional period of juxtaposition of the old with the new, really trying to emerge into the adult part of life. That started during the period that we discussed last time. And that was the Saturn return at 30. And the beginning of that was really marked by the major transition between the ages of Saturn that split life into 30-year periods. So we can say that from birth to 30, we are in the childhood stage of life. Then from 30 to 60, we are in the most mature, but also the most productive second part. And then later on, we're going to see what happens after 60. And we are then emerging into a completely different section that has its own tasks, its own lessons, and so on. So yeah, last time we were focusing on Venus. So that was 28 to 35. So right at the end of the 20s, in the beginning of the 30s. And I did connect that period with the birth of some sort of spontaneous self-expression. Another thing that I want to just remind you, especially if you're just starting to follow this, is that we can also, now thinking of the aspects that Uranus makes every time that it turns another 7-year period, we begin from a semi-sextile in the beginning, then it becomes a sextile, a square. And last time, for example, when we were talking about Venus, we had a trine of Uranus to its natal position. So if we follow the planet and how it evolves over time, it makes those aspects that remind us a little bit to the stages of the signs in the zodiac. So I know that last time there was a bit of confusion about this, so maybe it's worth it me just repeating that a little bit before we get to the point of today's period. But very roughly, we have, just on the one hand, we have this association with the planets, and that's my proposal of why this planet might be related to that particular period. I hope I can convince you why today Neptune is the one that really governs the show and is so important. But on the other hand, the actual aspects of Uranus also remind us of the step-by-step journey through the zodiac. So we can say that the very first 7 years of life were very Aries-like in their character. Then when we were 7 to 14 years old, there was something going on that very much reminds us of Taurus activity. From 14 to 21, then we were in the Gemini stage of life. And this also coincides with, we were talking about Mercury at that stage. So it was like a twice mercurial period. Then number 4 is like a Cancerian period, the 20s, for many, many reasons. And again, if you look back at what we spoke about before, you can see why exactly I'm saying that. And then we came to number 5, our very last session, and that was very Leo in its way of doing things, experiencing life, as that was the moment when we were testing ourselves as a spontaneous self-expression, and in a way that we would now receive feedback from the world of what we are trying our hands in. And then this is kind of continued today by the second part of this 14-year period. So with Venus, we started for the third time a 14-year period, age 28 to 35, but age 35 to 42, where we are today, is the second part of that 14-year pair. So basically, I'm pairing Venus with Neptune, like I was pairing the moon with Saturn, then Mercury with Uranus. Now we are seeing what's the completion of that logic of Venus being paired with Neptune, and why.